Is there a man or woman alive who has not accused or been accused by their significant other of not listening? You're probably smiling, aren't you? Well, you're not alone. I've been asking that question of my clients for nearly 2 decades, and I always get the same sheepish grin from everyone. Not listening ranks high among the causes of failure in all human communication. In interpersonal communications, the consequence of not listening can be an argument at best or a severe strain on the relationship at worst. But in business, the consequence of not listening can be failure to close the deal, gain approval, get the investment, or sell the product. In politics, it can be worse. On October 15, 1992, George H. Bush, the incumbent president, met his challengers, Bill Clinton, the then governor of Arkansas, and Ross Perot, the billionaire businessman, in the first ever town hall debate. In this format, the candidates were to answer questions posed by ordinary citizens.
We have a question right here.
Yes, how has the national debt personally affected each of your lives? And if it hasn't, how can you honestly find a cure for the economic problems of the common people if you have no experience in what's ailing them?
Well, I think the national debt affects everybody. Obviously, it has a lot to do with interest rates. It has.
She's saying you personally.
On a personal basis, how has it affected you?
She said you personally. George H. Bush said everybody. He wasn't listening.
Has it affected you personally?
Well, I'm sure it has. I love my grandchildren. I want to think that.
How? He still doesn't have it.
I want to think that they're going to be able to afford an education. I think that that's an important part of being a parent. Maybe I won't get it wrong.
3 times, and he still doesn't have it.
Are you suggesting that if somebody has means, that the national debt doesn't affect them?
Oh, what I'm saying
I'm not sure I get it. Help me with the question, and I'll try to answer it.
On the 4th try, he admits that he didn't understand her question, so she helps him out.
I've had friends that have been laid off from jobs.
Yeah.
I know people who cannot afford to pay the mortgage on their homes, their car payment. I have personal problems with the national debt, but how has it affected you? And if you have no experience in it, how can you help us if you don't know what we're feeling?
I think she means more the recession, the economic problems today the country faces, rather than the deficit.
You ought to be in the White House for a day and hear what I hear and see what I see and read the mail I read and touch the people that I touch from time to time. I was in the Lomax AME Church. It's a black church just outside of Washington, D.C. And I read in the bulletin about teenage pregnancies, about the difficulty that families are having to make ends meet. I talked to parents. I mean, you got to care. Everybody cares if people aren't doing well.
President Bush's long, circuitous route to answer the young woman's question sent the message that he either wasn't listening or was completely out of touch. To a nation mired in an economic downturn, the question was right on target. It was also to become the point of no return for George H. Bush. The public opinion polls of that election campaign showed a narrowing race between Bush and Clinton. But after that 3rd debate, the numbers diverged. Bush's dropped while Clinton's rose. Political analysts attributed the shift to his mishandling of that fateful question. As devastating as that exchange appears, it was even worse. Yes, George H. Bush did look at his wristwatch during the question. But after he looked at his wristwatch, he had another 55 seconds to formulate a better response. That interval was occupied by Ross Perot's answer.
May I answer?
Well, Mr.
Who do you want to start with?
Of course.
Go
right ahead.
Go right ahead. For each of you.
Yes.
So
it caused me to disrupt my private life and my business to get involved in this activity. That's how much I care about it. And I owe it to the future generations, and on a very personal basis, I owe it to my children and grandchildren.
It got still worse for President Bush. Following his rambling answer and awkward exchange, he headed back to his seat, and Bill Clinton's turn came.
Tell me how it's affected you again. You know people who lost their jobs and lost their homes?
Well, yeah, Bill Clinton sent the message, "I heard you." He then picked up the ball and ran with it.
Well, I've been governor of a small state for 12 years. I'll tell you how it's affected me. I've been out here for 13 months, meeting in meetings just like this ever since October, with people like you all over America. People that have lost their jobs, lost their livelihood, lost their health insurance.
She's nodding. She could just as well have said you were listening.
What I want you to understand is the national debt is not the only cause of that. It is because America has not invested in its people. It is because we have not grown. It is because we've had 12 years of trickle-down economics. We've gone from 1st to 12th in the world in wages. We've had 4 years where we produced no private sector jobs. Most people are working harder for less money than they were making 10 years ago.
President Bush realizes what has happened.
It is because we are in the grip of a failed economic theory. And this decision you're about to make better be about what kind of economic theory you want. Not just people saying, I'm going to go fix it, but what are we going to do? What I think we have to do is invest in American jobs, American education, control American health care costs, and bring the American people together again.
The winner and the loser in the moment that brought down the House of the 41st presidency. While very few people get the opportunity to try to win the presidency of the United States, everyone who tries to win in business, and in fact everyone who tries to win in any endeavor by seeking the concurrence of other people, must avoid the fatal mistake of not listening. The remedy is a skill called active listening, the subject of the next chapter.